So, one of you has to read the para and then we'll come back to it. Pallavi, it's your day.
Yes, Rangada.
You have the text?
Yes, Rangada, I have the text.
Okay, go ahead. Here too, in this moment.
Here too, in this movement by which the soul divests itself gradually of the obscure robe of the ego, there is a progress by marked stages. For not only the fruit of works belongs to the Lord alone, but our works also must be His. He is the true Lord of our actions, no less than of our results. This we must not see with the thinking mind only. It must become entirely true to our entire consciousness and will. The sadhaka has not only to think and know, but to see and feel concretely and intensely, even in the moment of the working and in its initiation and whole process, that his works are not his at all, but are coming through him from the supreme existence. He must be always aware of a force, a presence, a will that acts through his individual nature. But there is, in taking this turn, the danger that he may confuse his own disguised or sublimated ego or an inferior power with the Lord and substitute its demands for the supreme dictates. He may fall into a common ambush of this lower nature and distort his supposed surrender to a higher power into an excuse for a magnified and uncontrolled indulgence of his own self will and even of his desires and passions. A great sincerity is asked for and has to be imposed not only on the conscious mind but still more on the subliminal part of us, which is full of hidden movements. For there is there, especially in our subliminal vital nature, an incorrigible charlatan and actor. The sadhaka must first have advanced far in elimination of desire and in the firm equality of his soul towards all workings and all happenings before he can utterly lay down the burden of his works on the divine. At every moment, he must proceed with a vigilant eye upon the deceits of the ego and the ambushes of the misleading powers of darkness, who ever represent themselves as the one source of light and truth, and take on them a simulacrum of divine forms in order to capture the soul of the seeker.
Okay. Very, yes, description of the vital deceiving the person is very, very clear, very interesting paragraph. We'll do one thing. I'll read out the previous para summary so that we get the sense of continuity. So, what he said in the previous para. In the integral yoga, the disappearance of the separated ego sense is indispensable. The ego has to absolutely go away. And that's one of the most difficult things. Okay, so just 1 second. Now it has come. Okay, so in the integral yoga, the disappearance of the separated ego sense is indispensable. Okay, for if for action in the physical world, some subtilized form of it is to be found to be useful, then it can continue, but only as an outermost unsubstantial formation, which will willingly consent to disappear when the true individual center is ready to take over its place. Okay. Remember, we discussed this quite a lot the other day. Sometimes, even after realization, you have to remain in the physical world, then you have to leave some sort of mild attachment to yourself, to the lower levels. Okay. I gave you the example of Ramakrishna also, how he used to anchor his consciousness to the physical world by leaving a very small, harmless desire. I'm a jal khabo, I'll just drink water. Things like that. Okay, so and in Srina's case, It's only a formation, it's a form of the ego, not the ego itself at all. And that has to be. In mother's case, she was working at the physical level. So automatically the consciousness was at that level, physical level. In fact, she's saying, in agenda, she says very interestingly that when the divine consciousness is there in the physical cells, then she is absolutely marvelously painless. But when that does not happen, because it doesn't happen all the time, it's a pioneering work she was doing. So when that happens, then there is pain. And pain means what? We know what happened now before 73. She used to howl, okay? And we could hear all the noise downstairs. People used to think that she is suffering. But it's not that at all. It is the body suffering at that level when temporarily the divine consciousness is going away from the body. But it is there at the higher levels, but not in the body. Okay? So that was the anchor. So this anchor is a very interesting thing. That's what he has spoken about in the previous paragraph. Then, the true individual, I'm still reading the summary of the previous one. The true individuality is a real, individualized, limited formation of the one infinite consciousness, and it becomes a pure channel and therefore an instrument of the divine. If it is a self, the true individuality, then it is infinite. But if it is a psychic being, there is a limitation. Okay, it is individualized. The psychic can also merge itself with the self. That also is possible. May not always happen, but it's possible that can happen. In fact, in Srila Yoga, it is recommended. Okay, so this universal individuality, which is the self, becomes the support of the lower manifestation of body, life, mind, and this universal individual reveals himself gradually to be the true person, the person aspect of the impersonal universality. It is the Paraprakriti Jiva Bhuta, Amsha Sanatana, a part of the Purushottama. The human soul is a part of the divine soul. The individual form of the Paraprakriti in the Parashakti. So now we come back to our para that we read today. So I'll read each sentence. 1 second. Here too, in this movement by which the soul divests itself gradually of the obscure robe of the ego, there is progress. There is a progress by marked stages. Nothing happens miraculously. With everything there is a process. For not only the fruit of works belongs to the Lord alone, but our works also must be His. Okay? Whatever we are doing, the work also, the fruit also, but the work also is His, not our work. Yeah. He is the true Lord of our actions, no less than our results. Okay? So, at the first stage, it is the Prakriti, which is the doer of the works. Now, when your ego goes away and you rise to an even higher level, then it is not only the nature, but now the divine, the Purushottama himself becomes the doer of your action. You think that you are doing, but now at that high level, you don't think you are doing anymore. Okay, so that is what she said. For not only the fruit of works belongs to the Lord alone, but our works also, the work that we are doing also must be His. He is the true Lord of our actions, no less than our results. This we must not see with the thinking mind only. It must become entirely true to our entire consciousness and will. Okay? That means to say, you must even feel physically and vitally that He is guiding you, not only mentally. It must become entirely true to our entire consciousness and will. The sadhaka has not only to think and know, but to see and feel concretely. See the word concretely and intensely. You must feel yourself absolutely activated by the divine. Even in the moment of the working and in its initiation and whole process, that his works are not his at all. The doer must feel like that, but are coming through him from the supreme existence. Okay? The work that you are doing is being guided and initiated by the supreme existence. He must be always aware of a force, a presence, a will that acts through his individual nature. You must feel yourself to be a happy puppet in their hands. You must be also always aware of a force, a presence, a will. Note that. Not only a force, but a presence. He is there guiding you with his will that acts through his individual nature. But there is, in taking this turn, the danger that he may confuse his own disguised and sublimated ego or an inferior power with the Lord and substitute his demands for the supreme dictates. You may feel that you are doing the divine work, but actually it is not the divine work, but some other thing your ego is doing, and you feel that it is coming from the supreme. You can deceive yourself. Now the deceit he is going to describe in great detail. Okay, he may fall into a common ambush of this lower nature and distort his supposed surrender to a higher power into an excuse for a magnified and uncontrolled indulgence of his own self-will and even of his desires and passions. Okay? So this is what can happen. If even a little bit of the remnant of the ego is still there, Swami says, he has not spoken about that, but there is an instrumental ego. When you rise to the self, the gross ego disappears, but it can be replaced by the instrumental ego. You may feel, yes, I know I'm not doing, but after all, I'm the instrument of the divine. So that ego takes a very subtle form. Okay? Not even so subtle, you become an instrumental ego. And even that disappears. Finally, only the ego becomes a spiritual ego. Very, very faint, but it is always there. So, he may fall into the common, note the word ambush, okay? Because this very interesting word he has used in the poem Rishi, he has used this word ambush. Suddenly you will be ambushed by desires or by your own senses. Desires. It can suddenly come on you, pounce on you. Okay? That can also happen at a fairly advanced stage of this lower nature and distort his supposed surrender to a higher power into an excuse for a magnified and uncontrolled indulgence of his own self-will, even of his desires and passions. There is one particular historical case like that. Is in Russia. There was this Rasputin, okay, who had risen to a height, but he was doing all sorts of things which normally a spiritual man does not do. Okay, so he is giving that. They have not mentioned him, but he is one of the interesting cases of this happening. Instrumental ego. A great sincerity is asked for and has to be imposed not only on the conscious mind, but still more on the subliminal part of us, which is full of hidden movements. Okay? Now, he is using the word subliminal. Okay, it can mean also the your vital. Okay, in the subliminal, there is the subliminal has got the inner mind, inner vital, and inner physical. Okay, so the vital can play all sorts of things there. Even the mind also, but the vital much more so. And he's describing what the vital can do to you. For there is there means in the subliminal, especially in our subliminal vital nature, there you are, very clear. An incorrigible charlatan I don't know how you pronounce this word. In French, it is charlatan. It means an impostor who is putting on airs, a beguiler, a trickster, okay? A charlatan. Let me check the pronunciation. Charlatan. Charlatan. Oh, it's there. Okay, let me see. Yeah.
Charlatan.
Oh, it's like charlatan, like in French. Charlatan.
Charlatan.
Charlatan. It's not cha. It's not charlatan, but charlatan, like in French. Okay, so, and who is that? It's a trickster, an impostor, who puts on airs, okay, pretender, an incorrigible charlatan and actor. The sadhaka must first have advanced far in the elimination of desire and in the firm equality of his soul towards all workings and happenings on all happenings before he can utterly lay down the burden of his works on the divine. This can happen very easily at our level. We feel that we are doing the divine work, but actually it's the ego which is taking the enjoyment. And we are saying, I'm doing mother's work. Okay? In the departments, in all the ashram departments, certainly we are doing mother's work in a sense. But the credit for it, and you think that you are the doer. If you think that you are the doer, then naturally you're not doing for mother's work. The sadhaka must first have advanced far in the elimination of desire and in the firm equality of the soul towards all workings and happenings before he can utterly lay down the burden of his works on the divine. At every moment, he must proceed with a vigilant eye upon the deceits of the ego and the ambushes, second time he's using the word, and the ambushes of the misleading powers of darkness, who ever represent themselves as the one source of light and truth, and take on them a simulacrum of divine forms in order to capture the soul of the seeker. This last bit, okay, powers of darkness, who ever represent themselves as the one source of light and truth, and take on themselves a simulacrum, a similarity. Okay, simulacrum is something which is a duplicate, but very, very similar looking. Okay, so, I'll give you an example of this, because it became a very, very famous example in the ashram. Okay, Nolida, who is admittedly a very advanced sadhak, okay, even mother used to consult him on certain things, okay, had an experience once when Sri Aurobindo is coming to him and challenging him for a wrestling. Okay? I want to wrestle with you. But Nolida, because he was so sincere, he could understand immediately that this is not Sri Aurobindo. Okay? It became very famous. Everybody in the ashram came to know about this. And the reason why he understood was when he looked at his leg, there was some defect in that leg. Either there was a skin problem or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but there was something in the leg. Immediately he knew that this is not Sri Aurobindo. Okay? So he took up the challenge also. He said, okay. And the rest I don't, but this is a very famous example of the powers of darkness, who ever represent themselves as the one source of light and truth, and take on them a simulacrum of divine forms in order to capture the soul of the seeker. The best example, Nolida and Sri Aurobindo. Okay. So now we can read the next one. So this Sri Aurobindo is talking about even after you have reached the self and the instrumental ego is there. So what happens at our level? We are constantly thinking and not even recognizing that our desire is there. It's our desire. Okay. We mustn't think that we are doing. If you feel concretely that mother is doing the thing through you, then already there is something. But so long as, they saying very clearly, so long as desire and ego is there in you, it is impossible for you to do the divine work. Not possible. You mustn't think that you are doing divine work. Ego, everybody can recognize, but desire also we can recognize. But there are some who say, no, it's not a desire, it's a need. That also one has to be very alert to distinguish between a need and a desire. We can read the next one. Immediately you must take the further step. So, we'll read. Yeah.
Rangada? Oh, so
Yes.
what is that? What is that fake Sri Aurobindo? Is that the evil vital being?
No. It's a power of darkness. It's an asuric force.
Asuric force.
Asuric force that took on the simulacrum. He took on the form of Sri Aurobindo and came to Nolita. Okay? And challenged.
What is the form? The form is the real body or the vital thing?
No. The asuras have the capacity to change form.
Okay.
They have the capacity to change form and deceive you. They come in form, and that is the symbol in the Ramayana, where the it's on the shape of a golden deer, an attraction.
Then did everybody see that, or just Nolita was able to see that?
It depends on each case. In Nolita's case, it was Sri Aurobindo, but in other cases,
No, but Rangada, it was in dreams or he saw it physically during meditation. Was this experience in dream or during meditation?
Not dream at all. Absolutely, it was a very, very concrete spiritual experience.
During meditation or
That when you are having these, it's possible that you are in trance. But you need not also be in trance. If you are so advanced as Nolita, it may not have been in trance at all. You may have been in waking consciousness. Okay? You can see visions even in waking consciousness. Normally, for the normal man, one sees visions when one is in trance or in sleep. But in sleep does not mean, Kiran, that it is half true. It is not like that. Because they are subtle forms, but they are absolutely true. True at that level, not at the physical level. In fact, the subtler is more real than the physical, no? We know that.
yes.
Yeah. So your question seemed to imply that may have been not a real thing, but only half real. It's not like that. It's absolutely, that is more real than anything else.
Yes.
You are
Okay.
dreaming, yeah, subtle to subtle. Okay.
So not everybody.
Nalini Das saw that his legs, the toes were not pointing forward, but the toes were pointing backward and the heel was in front.
Okay, so that
was the catching point.
Okay.
And the other thing what Sunki was saying is, it is actually a wolf in a sheep's clothing, like Red Riding Hood.
Okay. Okay,
Much more dangerous. Much more dangerous.
This is what Yasmin has told. This is what I have. The version which I know is that the foot was the opposite. You know, the heel in front and toes.
Okay. So that is a sign. Okay. Because you can't absolutely become spiritual, not possible. So some sign will be there. If you're sincere, you're able to catch that sign. But this is at a very high level. Okay. So it happens to.
This vision can be more real than than actually I'm seeing somebody.
Absolutely.
Like I'm talking to you right now, that such a vision can be even more real than this.
Yes.
It never fades away.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, one thing you must remember, Kiran, the subtler the regions, the planes above, they are more concrete than the physical. The The subtler, the more concrete it is, the more real it becomes. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's read the next one. Immediately he must take the further step. So how to deal with this problem? We'll read. Tarika, you have the text with you? Okay.
Yes, one.
Let's read.
Yeah,
Okay, well, immediately.
yeah. Immediately, he must take the further step of relegating himself to the position of the witness. Aloof from the Prakriti, impersonal and dispassionate, he must watch the executive nature force at work within him and understand its action. He must learn by this separation to recognize the play of her universal forces, distinguish her interweaving of light and night, the divine and the undivine, and detect her formidable powers and beings that use the ignorant human creature. Nature works in us, says the Gita, through the triple quality of Prakriti, the quality of light and good, the quality of passion and desire, and the quality of obscurity and inertia. The seeker must learn to distinguish as an impartial and discerning witness of all that proceeds within us, within this kingdom of his nature. The separate and the combined action of these qualities. He must pursue the workings of the cosmic forces in him through all the labyrinth of their subtle, unseen processes and disguises and know every intricacy of the maze. As he proceeds in this knowledge, he will be able to become the giver of the sanction and no longer remain an ignorant tool of nature. At first, he must induce the nature force in its action on his instruments to subdue the working of its two-layer qualities and bring them into subjection to the quality of light and good. And afterwards, he must persuade that again to offer itself so that all three may be transformed by a higher power into their divine equivalents, supreme repose and calm, divine illumination and bliss, the eternal divine dynamis, tapas. The first part of this discipline and change can be firmly done in principle by the will of the mental being in us. Sorry. But its full execution and the subsequent transformation can be done only when the deeper psychic soul increases its hold on the nature and replaces the mental being as its ruler. When this happens, he will be ready to make, not only with an aspiration and intention and an initial and progressive self-abandonment, but with the most intense actuality of dynamic self-giving, the complete renunciation of his works to the supreme will. By degrees, his mind of an imperfect human intelligence will be replaced by a spiritual and illumined mind, and that can, in the end, enter into the supramental truth light. He will then no longer act from his nature of the ignorance with its three modes of confused and imperfect activity, but from a diviner nature of spiritual calm, light, power, and bliss. He will act not from an amalgam of an ignorant mind and all with the drive of a still more ignorant heart of emotion and the desire of the life being and the urge and instinct of the flesh, but first from a spiritualized self and nature, and last from a supramental truth consciousness and its divine force of supernature.
Quite a big para. Okay, so we'll go through it quickly. There are one or two things that need to be seen. Immediately, he must take the further step of relegating himself to the position of a witness. Don't get identified with your thoughts and your feelings, but look very objectively at yourself and like what is happening. Okay. Srimlo says that even when you get a spiritual experience of Ananda, it is sometimes better to watch silently and carefully what's happening, okay, instead of being identified with the experience. It's like watch carefully, because there can be all sorts of tricks and all sorts of things that can deceive you also. So immediately he must take the first step of relegating himself to the position of a witness. The word relegating is interesting. Withdraw. Okay? Withdraw yourself to a distance and see what's happening to yourself as though you are the witness and not you are the actor. Aloof from the Prakriti, impersonal and dispassionate. So very clearly, there is a self. The description is that of the self. Aloof from Prakriti. You are not identified with your body, mind, life anymore. Impersonal. Ego has gone. And dispassionate. Nothing is touching you. Okay? Nothing from the physical world is touching you. Neither thoughts nor emotions. He must watch the executive nature force at work, that nature is doing the work within him, and understand its action. He must learn by this separation from body, separation from life, separation from mind, okay, to recognize the play of our universal forces, distinguish her interweaving of light and night, right? Almost poetry. He's not saying light and darkness, he's saying light and night, the divine and the undivine, and detect her formidable powers and beings that use the ignorant human nature. So look at that. The formidable powers, they are the asuric forces and also beings. Okay? They are also beings who do these things. That is exactly what happens when these stories of the rishis being attacked by apsaras and all that. That's exactly. Apsaras are real, huh? They are real. But these asuric forces can take on these forms and compete. Okay. And Amal told me once that he had seen an apsara. Okay. And he said it's supernatural beauty. Okay. So naturally it can absolutely enchant you and you will get completely misguided. Okay. So, and detect her formidable powers and beings that use the ignorant human creature. Nature works in us, says the Gita, through the triple quality of Prakriti. The quality of light and good, the quality of passion and desire, and the quality of obscurity and inertia. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. This is describing very clear. The quality, because we use the word in Sanskrit, guna. Okay? Triguna. So, passion and desire, quality of good and light is sattva. Quality of passion and desire, rajas. Quality of obscurity and inertia, tamas. The seeker must learn to distinguish as an impartial and discerning witness. Again, the word impartial. Okay? Impersonal, impartial. Not take sides, watch only. And discerning witness, discerning. Okay? Discrimination must be there. Viveka. Okay? Discrimination of all that proceeds within this kingdom of his nature. This kingdom, he's talking of the experience of the subliminal. When you are at that level of the self, also these things can happen. Okay? So, the separate and the combined action of these qualities, sometimes at our level, they are always combined. We can never see very clearly these sattva, rajas, tamas separately. But when you go up to the self, it is possible to see them as separate, but also you can see the combined action in the physical world. Your body, mind, life will be a combined action all the time. He must pursue the workings of the cosmic forces in him through all the labyrinth of the subtle, unseen processes and disguises, and know every intricacy of the maze. Okay, I'll give you another example here of what happened to a gentleman. His name was Orunda. Okay, he used to live in the house which used to be now, which is a big girls' boarding. Okay, many people used to live there. It is that house was broken down, and the girls' boarding was. So Orunda was a lifeguard. Okay, he used to when we used to go swimming in the sea, he used to be there. He was a lifeguard. And he entered the vital world, the subliminal vital world, and he was having many experiences. And he very proudly told mother about these experiences. Okay? But mother knew immediately that you can get absolutely stuck at this, the subliminal vital. The subliminal vital, Srivastava describes it as the intermediate zone, because you are not in the physical, you have gone to the vital, but you have not yet gone to the subliminal proper, which is the psychic being and its territory. So you can get completely misguided. It's an intermediate zone, he calls it. And he also calls it the valley of the false glimmer. Okay? The valley of the false glimmer, because it can completely deceive you. So this is what you have to be careful. So this description is very clear. Okay? It's saying labyrinth, maze, okay, unseen processes and disguises. This is what he is describing. The entry into the intermediate zone. As he proceeds in this knowledge, he will be able to become the giver of the sanction. He becomes the Anumanta. Okay? If you have discrimination and you are a sanction giver, then you become the Anumanta and no longer remain an ignorant tool of nature. At first, he must induce the nature force in its action on his instruments. So, to subdue the working of the two lower qualities. So, if you are in the self, what do? You have to to control the body, mind, life actions. You have to control, first of all, the tamas and the rajas. That's what Swami is saying. And you do that through the mental purusha. You do that through the mental purusha, which is the sattvic aspect of it. Okay. As he proceeds in this knowledge, he will be able to become the giver of the sanction and no longer remain an ignorant tool of nature. At first, he must induce the nature force in its action on his instruments, body, mind, life, to subdue the working of his two lower qualities, tamas and rajas, and bring them into subjection to the quality of light and good, that is sattva. Sattva must replace the rajas and tamas. Rajas is desire and tamas is darkness, lack of understanding, and also of described inertia. Okay? The obscurity and inertia. The quality of good in life. And afterwards, he must persuade that again to offer itself so that all three may be transformed into, by higher power, into a divine equivalence. Now this is very interesting what he's saying. Okay? Tamas becomes supreme repose and calm. Inactivity, but a fully conscious and controlled inactivity. At the lower level, tamas is uncontrolled inactivity, laziness. Okay? But at the higher level, this transforms itself into the supreme repose and calm. Then the divine illumination and bliss. Okay? Divine illumination and bliss, sattva becomes light. Divine illumination and bliss. The eternal divine dynamics. Your vital, the rajas, becomes pure divine energy, dynamics. So this is what happens. Okay? This is a very important thing because it is establishing the connection between the higher and the lower, which many in the spiritual field deny. They say that there is no connection between the two. But this connection is very clearly being mentioned here, that tamas becomes supreme repose, calm, quiet, but full of a controlled inactivity. Then the rajas, desire, and all sorts of falsehoods in it, becomes the pure energy, energy purified, of which the symbol very clearly is the Hanuman. Hanuman is pure energy, tremendous energy, but psychicized. Again, he opens his chest and you see Ram and Sita's ensconced, okay, entrenched in his being. So he is a symbol of a psychicized energy. prana. Then we have the sattva. The limitations of the mind disappear and it becomes a mind of pure knowledge and elimination. The first part of this discipline and change can be firmly done in principle by the will of the mental being in us. The mental being, he is not talking of the normal human mental, but the mental Purusha, okay? Manomaya Purusha, the consciousness at the spiritual level is a mental being. But its full execution and subsequent transformation can be done only when the deeper psychic soul increases its hold on the nature and replaces the mental being as its ruler. Okay. When this happens, he will be ready to make, not only with an aspiration and intention and an initial and progressive self-abandonment, but with the most intense actuality of dynamic self-giving, the complete renunciation of his works to the Supreme Will. Only when the psychic can do that, replace the mind as a controller of the lower nature, then only can you do what he's saying here. When this happens, we'll be ready to make, not only with an aspiration and intention, yes, just one second. Yeah. Not only with an aspiration and intention and an initial and progressive self-abandonment, but with the most intense actuality of dynamic self-giving, the complete renunciation of his works is Supreme Will. Otherwise, you can't do that. The psychic, the triple transformation of Srivamda's yoga: psychic transformation, spiritual transformation, then supramental transformation. By degrees, his mind of an imperfect human intelligence will be replaced by spiritual and illumined mind. He is talking of the, first of all, the higher mind in which you experience yourself, then the illumined mind, which is the second degree in the spiritual planes. And that can, in the end, enter into the supramental truth light. The supramental truth light, even beyond the intuition and the overmind, it goes into the supramental truth light. He will then no longer act from his nature of the ignorance, with its three modes of confused and imperfect activity, but from a diviner nature of spiritual calm, light, power, bliss. Spiritual calm, the tamas becoming spiritual calm, light, the mental being, the sattva becoming light, power and bliss. Power belongs to the vital, and bliss is a psychic being. That's what happens. He will act not from an amalgam of an ignorant mind and will, with the drive of a still more ignorant heart and emotion, and the desire of the life being, and the urge and instinct of the flesh. All these things will not be there when he goes to that level. But first, from a spiritualized self and nature, and last, from the supramental truth consciousness and divine force of supernature. By the way, whenever Srivamda uses the word truth consciousness, okay, you know that he is talking of the supermind. Okay, keep that in mind. Truth consciousness always Srivamda uses in the sense of supermind. Okay, we have gone far, 4 minutes beyond our time. I'm sorry, but we have finished the. Thus are made possible. Sunki, you have to note down.
Yes, I'll make a note.
Thus are made possible. Okay.
Yes.
Buongiorno Rangada, merci.
Have a nice day. We can welcome everyone who has joined us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rangana.